5 minutes after my moving truck pulled away, 3 HOA board members stormed straight onto my private pier like they owned the ocean. The woman in front, perfectly dressed in nautical white and navy, jabbed a clipboard at me and barked, "You need to dismantle this immediately." What she didn't know, what made me almost laugh through the shock, was that every dock plank beneath her heels, every boat slip behind her, and even part of the shoreline she ruled over, legally belonged to me. My name's Kensington. 6 months before this insanity, I'd sold my crypto company for $47 million. After years of living behind screens, I wanted something real, something that smelled like salt and wind, not server heat. So when I saw a listing for a waterfront cabin with existing riparian rights, I figured I was buying peace. What I actually bought was a front row seat to the most absurd power trip I've ever witnessed. That morning felt perfect. At first, the movers' left gulls were circling above and the tide lapped gently at the dock. Then came the marching. 3 people, fast, stiff-backed eyes locked on me like they were about to deliver a warrant. The woman introduced herself with a smirk. Serafina Westmont, president of the Coastal Haven Homeowners Association. Behind her stood a nervous older man scrolling on his phone and another woman snapping photos of my pier like it was a crime scene. I tried to be polite. I just bought this place 3 weeks ago. What seems to be the problem? The problem, she said, is that this primitive fishing setup violates our community's maritime standards. It's an eyesore. You have 72 hours to remove it. I blinked at her. My pier was part of the property deed. I'd checked that. I even had a small 24-foot fishing boat for weekend crab trips. Nothing more. "Ma'am," I said, "this is private property." She tilted her chin. "Not above community standards, it isn't." Then she turned, heels clicking, leaving me staring after her while her photographer snapped one last picture for whatever HOA scrapbook of shame she kept. That night I sat on the pier angry but confused. How could they have authority here? My attorney swore there was no HOA jurisdiction. The wind off the water felt colder than before, heavy with doubt. I called my brother Caspian. He's a maritime lawyer in Seattle. He chuckled when I told him. Sounds like classic HOA overreach. But before you go knocking on doors, pull a full title search. Waterfront deeds can hide a lot beneath the surface. I didn't know it yet, but he was right. 2 days later, my phone rang again. Serafina's number. "Mr. Kensington, we've discovered additional violations. You now have 24 hours to begin dismantling your pier, or we'll seek injunctive relief." Her tone made it sound like she'd already won. I tried reason. "What violations? I haven't done anything since we last spoke." "We have photographs of you conducting unauthorized maritime business meetings," she said, dripping with satisfaction. I actually laughed. "You mean the conversations I had with a few fishermen? Those were chats, not contracts." Her reply was icy. "Consult an attorney, Mr. Kensington. You'll need one." When the line went dead, I just sat there gripping my coffee mug, staring out at the fog curling over the harbor. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crept in. Maybe I'd missed something in the sale. Maybe this whole dream of peace by the water was about to implode into legal hell. By midnight, I was pacing the living room, wondering if I should just sell and walk away. Then Caspian's words replayed in my head. "Don't let bullies win because you're tired." That's when I found Victoria Sterling, a maritime attorney his firm trusted. She sounded sharp, calm, and very interested. Within 48 hours, she called back with an edge in her voice. "You didn't just buy a cabin. You bought a controlling interest in Blackwater Maritime Operations." I almost dropped the phone. "Come again." Turns out the previous owner's husband hadn't simply built a house. He'd owned a commercial marina business operating since the 80s. 43 slips, fuel rights, Coast Guard training contracts, the works. And the Coastal Haven community built on leased waterfront property owned by that same company, meaning me. I sat in stunned silence. Serafina had stormed onto land that I literally owned, waving HOA papers like a queen commanding her own landlord. But it got worse or better depending on how you look at it. Victoria found that her harassment had already cost the marina close to $87,000 in canceled charters and postponed training drills. Under maritime law, that was interference with interstate commerce, an offense that could nail her personally. Still, Serafina kept escalating. She sent petitions, letters to county zoning, even a press release claiming I was running industrial fishing operations, endangering the community. The local paper ate it up until a real reporter checked the property records. The headline that followed made coffee shoot out of my nose. HOA president battles her own landlord over harbor rights. By the time Friday rolled around, she'd called an emergency HOA meeting, swearing she had definitive legal ammunition. I decided to go, not to argue to finish this. The community center was packed, every seat filled with residents glaring at me like I was some dockside villain. Serafina stood at the podium, her pearls gleaming, a hired attorney beside her flipping through notes. She started her speech. Our neighborhood's peace has been threatened by unauthorized commercial activity. Mr. Kensington's equipment violates both aesthetic and environmental standards. Applause followed. Her lawyer piled on, quoting vague regulations and promising heavy fines. For a second watching them, I almost admired the performance. Almost. When they finally paused for a brief comment from the accused, Victoria stood. Calm, composed, a shark in heels. "Thank you, Madam President," she said smoothly. "Before this community votes on any action, you deserve the full picture of who and what you're threatening." She walked to the front, unfolded a massive harbor map, and clipped it to an easel. Red and yellow lines webbed across the water. "This," she said, tapping the red sections, "is property owned by Blackwater Maritime Operations, Mr. Kensington's company. And this yellow area here, your homes, this community center, even the park is built on land leased from Blackwater under a 99-year agreement." Gasps filled the room. The lawyer beside Serafina turned the color of wet paper. Victoria kept going, voice steady. "For 3 decades, your HOA fees have included annual lease payments to this marina operation, payments you've been sending indirectly to my client." You could hear hearts dropping through the floorboards. She laid out evidence of the marina's contracts, the Coast Guard deals, the charter partnerships, the fuel concessions, and then the damages caused by HOA interference. Screens lit up with canceled invoices and lost revenue. "Mrs. Westmont's campaign," Victoria said, "has already caused $87,000 in measurable losses. Under federal maritime commerce law that constitutes illegal restraint of trade. Liability for such damages can be personal." All eyes swung toward Serafina. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then came the witnesses. Captains, dock workers, even a Coast Guard representative, all confirming the marina's legitimacy and how her actions had disrupted operations. Someone in the back muttered, "She's been costing us money." Then another shouted, "You said he was illegal." The tide had turned. Victoria delivered the coup de grace. Mr. Kensington could, if he wished, terminate the entire lease holding this community in place. But he'd rather maintain cooperation, provided this board ceases its unlawful interference. I finally stood. My voice shook at first, but I steadied it. "I moved here for peace, not power. I never wanted a fight. But I won't be bullied off property I legally own. You wanted me to tear down my pier, Mrs. Westmont. Maybe you should have checked whose dock you were standing on." The silence was electric. Then came the whispers, the murmurs, the shift of chairs as people turned away from her. Serafina tried one last swing. This can't be real. We'll verify every document." Victoria cut her off gently. "You'll have ample time to do that. After you sign this settlement." She slid a folder across the table. $65,000 for business disruption and your immediate resignation as HOA president. Serafina's hand trembled as she signed. No applause this time, just the rustle of papers and the dull thud of her pen hitting the table. That was the end of it. No victory parade, no champagne. Just the quiet satisfaction of watching a tyrant realize the walls she built weren't hers to stand on. As I walked out into the night, the harbor lights shimmered on the water, and for the first time since moving there, the place actually felt peaceful. Sometimes the best revenge isn't yelling louder, it's letting the truth speak for itself.